Her mother wanted her to be the perfect wife. She built her daughter a real-life play cottage. The beds were real and it had electricity and running water. During the day, Frances Dodge was a wife with a household to maintain. In the evening, she was a sister living and playing at home. Frances could often be found in the stables. Her mother often doubted if, instead of a cottage, she should have given Frances her own stable. Though her mother never spent much time with the children, they all felt loved and even spoiled. Frances had everything a girl could want, and maybe even something she didn't, a brother. On a warm sunny day, a couple of Daniel's friends came to call. Frances didn't really care for Danny's friends, since she found them to be quite rowdy. Frances loved to read in the silence of the English walled garden. Danny and his companions also enjoyed the garden's tranquility. The boys would play wrestling games in the garden and were often scolded for it. Today their mother wasn't around to scold, so they were free to do as they pleased. Frances had been reading Joan of Arc by Mark Twain and had taken on a sense of bravery. "Would you stop making that horrid racket?" she pressed. The boys all turned around at once. "We don't have to, and it isn't racket, it's wrestling," Danny retorted. He had recently taken up an interest in wrestling and wouldn't let anyone discourage him. Just then one of Danny's younger friends accidentally missed a step and stomped down on Frances's favorite flower. She had grown that flower from a seed. For a moment it seemed like time had stopped. Frances's face grew red. Danny rushed to comfort her. As he got closer, she pushed him away. The thrust of her push also threw her into the fountain behind her. It happened so quickly, it was all a blur. At the moment, Frances knew that she was wet. She was soaked to her underclothes. When she finally rubbed the water from her eyes, she assessed the surroundings. It seemed as though she was home, but instead of the vivid colors she was so familiar with, the world around her was black and white. It reminded her of one of those picture shows she often saw. There were no sounds of the usual birds that are always on the grounds. Frances dashed for the house. The door was wide open, and there was no one inside. She slowly made her way to her playroom. Then she realized ever since she fell in the fountain there haven't been any doors. She had just assumed that they were open and hadn't noticed. Frantically, she felt scared, so she dashed to her mother's living quarters, expecting to find no one. Much to her surprise, she found her mother Matilda reading a magazine. Her mother looked up at her. "Hello, darlings, and so I see you found me. I guess we should head back to the real world." Frances just stared, and could this really be her mother?